Hello, everyone. Welcome back to a new episode of Night Call. Last time, I believe, was the episode where we talked to the Ghost Kid, if I'm remembering correctly. And today we are going to this lady. Hello. Grace Ndago. Ivory, please. Sure thing. The next passenger has been crying. That seems like a pretty common thing, actually. She stares at the floor and gives you an address in the nearby suburbs. You've just started driving when her telephone rings. The ringtone is familiar. Yes? There's a pause. Her tone is sharp and curt. Yes, I'm on my way home right now. She pauses, holds her breath. Yes. Another pause. She sounds annoyed. No, I took a taxi. On the other end, the voice gets louder. Who's paying? Who's paying? Well, I am. I don't want to take the bus home tonight. Come on, lay off. A new round of criticism begins. Look, can you just lay off? Yeah, we'll talk about it when I get back. She holds the phone away from her ear, ready to hang up, then pulls it back. Yes, I'm here. Finally glances at you. There's no need to scream. I can hear you. I told you we'll talk about it when I get home. She rolls her eyes. Oh, come on. My life is not ruined. I mean, I failed one exam. Don't worry, there will be others. Their voices raised another notch. I'm gonna have to let you go. She smiles. No, that was the driver saying we were going to be cut off. No, he seems normal. Mom, I said it's break. She hangs up. Thank you. You hear a ring, the same tone as before. The young woman hesitates, turns the phone over in her hand, and decides not to answer. Sorry. I know that tune. Her face lights up. It's Lacme by Leo Delibes. Oh boy. It's too early in the morning for me to be doing this. We gave a performance with this music. After hearing it so much, I just totally fell in love with it. It's such an incredibly soft beat. In the opera it comes from, the priestess Lacme and one of her companions go to gather jasmine for the temple, and you sense the love between the characters. And it's mutual. The two women sing and their words are very similar, but not identical. You sing? No, I'm a dancer, classical, jazz, and other various combinations. I've danced since I was a little girl, but I've been dancing even more these last few years. I love it. A friend and I did put our own choreography to a few scenes from the Lacme Opera once. We did a show. It was really exciting. The smile that appears on her face seems to have erased the tear. And thanks for earlier, by the way. I missed the last metro, and to be honest, I really didn't want to go home. My mother is waiting to have a long, very long discussion about my future, my career, all the sacrifices she's made for me. She's a cleaning woman in one of the fancy office buildings at La Défense, and I failed my bar exam, so she thinks... Oh, the bar exam, I think, is for lawyers? I believe. She stops herself. She was going to make a joke, but something keeps her from doing so. Her smile vanishes. She thinks I'll end up as a cleaning woman at La Défense. The passenger sighs. She thinks I dance too much. She thinks it's Lacme's fault. But mostly, she thinks it's my fault. She heaves a huge sigh and stares at nothing outside. Yeah, I get this. Having like all the pressures of a parent put on you and they expect so much from you, rather than just letting you do your own thing. I studied, I work hard, but I didn't pass. I just don't believe in all that anymore. Now be warned, what I'm about to say will sound cliche, but I want to be a dancer, not a lawyer. I think a lot of people would rather have a job where they pursue their passion rather than be a lawyer, which to me sounds like the most boring job in the world. My mother doesn't understand. You must work to earn money in order to succeed. She takes a breath. Sorry, I didn't mean to unload on you. I must seem like a pretentious little princess. Not at all. Thanks. Thanks for lying. She smiles. The address she gave you is not much further. I mean, I know I owe my mother a lot. I have to stop being so self-centered, blah blah blah, and I have to pass this fucking exam. She clicks her tongue as if to force herself to stop talking. Instead, she keeps going. Mind you, she came to my LACME performance. She pauses, tries to find her words. She saw me dance, and when we left, it's kind of dumb, but she didn't say a single word. And I think I've never felt prouder. Her silence spoke 1,000 words. You pull up to her house. She takes her time getting out of the car. I don't know why I said all that, but it felt really good. Thank you. She disappears. Her tears have definitely vanished. Neat. Okay. Not going to click on this guy since he apparently, like... I assume he soft locks your game, but maybe he just knocks you over the head and steals your taxi, and that's just like a game over state. Who knows? Let's do... this gentleman. Why not? Not too long of a drive. I'm not going to try to pronounce that. The next passenger getting in your cab has a surprisingly calm presence. He gently closes his door and gives you an address on the other side of the city. You start driving. You sense your passenger wants to talk about the killer. It's simple. Since the first murder, everyone thinks they know something. Everyone thinks they saw something. And this passenger is no exception. Rather chilly out, isn't it? His voice is warm and deep. Finally, you notice his white collar. You're not too cold? No, I'm alright. You got a lot of grit to want to drive in this kind of weather. The holy water font froze yesterday. We had to pour boiling water over it to break the ice. Pauses for a moment. Looks at the car, the seat, the windows. It's funny. I'd never made the connection before today, but a taxi is kind of like a confessional. A small box removed from the world where two people can converse without the risk of being interrupted. I can't think of many people that talk to a taxi driver like some of these people talk to a taxi driver. My guy just must be like the most, what's the word I'm looking for? The most, like, the perfect person just to console in. He waits. You look at him in the rearview mirror. Do people blabber on about their lives? Pretty much every single person I've picked up does that. Sometimes. He looks outside and continues speaking softly. I was sure of it. His face lights up. Why yes, I'm doing exactly what my parishioners do when they come for confession. They start with small talk, the weather, their grandson, granddaughter, niece, their dog, then they finally get around to what really matters. They share lies, trickery, stinginess. He sighs. I've been listening to people's confessions for over 15 years and... wow, he really doesn't look that old. Huh. I thought he was going to be like 20 or something. It's funny, but no one has ever told me anything really serious. He's waiting to see how you react. No crimes? A slight smile on his face. There have been things that are hard on a personal level, but never anything illegal. It's just that people I hear in confession have so much to say. Of course, we all have things we are ashamed of. Frood clearly understood the importance of confession booth. He made it into something more modern, more attractive, and less punitive. He pauses. Before going to seminary, I never doubted my calling, but since... He leans in closer, his voice is now lower and softer. Since then, I have a clearer understanding of the world. I can connect religions, schools of thoughts, ideas. And living in a country that is less and less religious, it's hard not to start wondering. Passenger makes a sound like a cork popping from a wine bottle. I have something I want to tell you. It doesn't bother me that people stop believing or believe in something else. Why our faith more than another? He struggles to find his words. What bothers me is that I'm not bothered by it. It's like I've already accepted it. He looks outside. Is there such a thing as driver-passenger confidentiality? He pauses, then bursts out laughing. I'm kidding, but I do wonder what people talk to you about. They talk to me about information important to the investigation so that I'm not blackmailed by a CI and sent to jail. How would you feel about swapping stories? Sure. Really? I didn't think... He smiles. Well, I mean, we have nothing better to do on this drive. Nothing leaves this car, right? You nod. Who first? Me. It's not such a nice story. It's a story that haunts you. You think about it regularly. Not only because of everything that followed. The night of the terrorist attacks, the other drivers, and I were helping people get home. We drove around, waved to people to get in, telling them it was okay, that everything was going to be alright. It was chaos. They all wanted to get home to their loved ones who weren't answering their phones. The slightest odd noise made them jump. Anyway, a woman and her husband got in the car. She wore a headscarf. He was glued to his phone. They gave me an address and we drove towards Rue de Rivoli. The radio was announcing the first estimations of the numbers of deaths. He started crying. She looked at me, stared at me in the rearview mirror, like she wanted to read my mind. We'd almost arrived when he told her to take her scarf off, that it would be easier for everyone that way. She refused. He raised his voice. She continued to stare at me in the mirror. A car speeds in front of you, you stop talking. How reckless. Glance at the meter, the green light, your rearview mirror. In the back seat, your passenger leans slightly forward. And what did you do? I nodded, insinuating that she was right, that it would all come down to that. She kept her headscarf on. I pulled over in front of the building. She got out first, walked towards the building without waiting for him. He paid me, lowered his eyes. He takes a second to process the story. He holds your gaze, his hands clasped. Impressive. Very impressive. You're saying we should remain proud of and faithful to our convictions. You nod. Your passenger smiles, but something is not quite right, as if the smile were forced. My turn now, then, I suppose. There was this old man whose wife died very young. Since she was an avid churchgoer, he continued to come every Sunday morning. He clarifies. You should know that it's rare to see men alone at church. There are couples, lots of old ladies, mothers, young women. Church is not very manly, unfortunately. That's not something I actually knew. But now that I think about it, I think when I did go to church, I never saw just like a single guy. But anyway, he came. One day, he asked me to take his confession. We sat down, a long moment of silence went by. I usually let them get acclimated to the muffled sounds coming from outside the booth, especially if it's their first time. And there he tells me that he's in love with someone but doesn't dare betray his deceased wife. She was everything, you see, his sun, his oxygen. The last 20 years he'd been suffocating, incapable of living alone. He wondered if it was a sin, or wrong, or if he might upset his wife up in heaven. He pauses a minute to let a smile spread across his face. I managed to find the right words, but he still wasn't sure and said he'd come back to talk to me again. He stops. He died that night in his sleep. I think of him often. We don't always hear our calling, we avoid our own destiny. His expression freezes. He hesitates, opens his mouth, stops himself, then finally. You're right. Our stories are similar, complementary. Thank you for sharing it with me. You've almost reached his destination. You notice your passenger has been keeping an eye on the dashboard clock. Park in front of the address he gave you and cut out the motor. Passenger pays his fare and suddenly seems lighter, more at ease. Good luck. He gets out of the taxi and disappears into a nearby building. Hey, we got some moolah. Alright, with that, I think this is a good spot to go ahead and end this video off. I hope you have enjoyed Night Call today, and I will see you next time.